Paulie, what are you looking forward to most on this no limit card?
Obviously the main event is the key fight here, especially that it has international meaning, because in America the big talk is about this return of Errol Spence. Here in Australia is the return of Tim Tszyu and how he's going to continue to keep looking. So I think it's a set of worlds to collide, so to speak. There's an interest in the United States, there's an interest in Australia. So I think all eyes are going to mainly be on how does Tim Tszyu look. Obviously he has to win, but how does he look? And what kind of fight is it going to be with Errol Spence? That's the talk going into the fight. Then of course they duke it out themselves in the ring, and we'll see what Nurja and Tszyu and how things go.
Cool. What do you think about that Spence and Tim matchup? Obviously, Spence coming off a big break, and
without overlooking anything on this weekend, obviously it's an interesting matchup, because both guys have been high-level fighters, but also both guys are looked at as guys who probably have to clean themselves up a little bit and maybe rebuild just a little bit, And I think Tim is doing that. I think Errol not doing that. He's never really been a guy who I think kept a good schedule, and I think that hurt him in the end. So I think Tim is doing it smarter by having fought the Velasquez fight and now be fighting the Nurja fight. If he's able to come through both of them, yeah, there's a risk because you get beat and you implode everything. But if you come through both of them, I think also building a psychology and a chemistry with the new trainer, with Pedro Diaz, I think it's important because Diaz is a very technical trainer. So when you're with a technical trainer, you're gonna need. I think you need a little bit more time. It's not the motivation type. It's not the rah-rah type of trainer. It's very specific, detailed type of boxing. And Diaz has that IQ type of boxing. So in order to really grasp that, I think you probably have to spend a couple of camps together. So I think Tim is doing it right. We'll know if Spence is doing it right. The only way we'll know is when they get in the ring, because obviously there's nothing that really compares with Spence. He fought Crawford, and then before that he had a layoff before that as well. So Spence has really been inactive, So we'll see.
With obviously big talks about that Spence fight, do you think Tim needs to be careful overlooking Nurja?
Of course. Nurja is undefeated. I think whenever you're undefeated and you're on the verge of something big, and for Nurja this is a huge opportunity. It's an opportunity. I think when you haven't yet fought on a stage where the entire world can recognize you, it's still your goal to reach that kind of stage. And then when you get to that stage, it can be a little bit unnerving, sure, but at the same time, you also realize that this is the door to a different world in this business, in this sport. It's a place that you've obviously dreamed of to be known on a world stage, but when you get there, it can be a little bit unnerving. So I think he's at the doorstep right now, and I don't think Nurja was going to be looking to do anybody any favors. He's undefeated, so he's going to obviously have that self-belief that he's not here just as an opponent. He's beating everybody in front of him, and so he's going to feel like he's earned the opportunity and the right to take on a guy like Tim Tszyu and possibly beat him.
Yeah, awesome. And Spence vs. Tszyu is confirmed. Why are you excited to see the mega fight happen?
Again, for me, it's a fight that it has importance on different continents. Spence was a very big product in the United States. And obviously Tim is a big product in Australia. But Tim also, the thing about the Tszyu brothers is there's always a curiosity because their father was a big product in the United States. So like it or not, the curiosity about the Tszyu brothers is going to stem from Kostya first. And then obviously Tim has had a lot of success. Nikita's starting to make a big name for himself as well. But I think it certainly didn't hurt them to be Kostya's kids, especially on the American scene. And maybe in the Australian scene, they've made a big name for themselves on their own, and they've done a really good job. But, they wouldn't have been as known if they weren't Kostya's kids. There was a bit more curiosity when Tim first started coming on the scene in the United States because of Kostya. Obviously then Tim made his own name. He's had some good results, and so obviously he's creating his own lane, so to speak. But this is a big fight for that reason too. Can at least from the United States perspective, I don't know how it is in Australia, but from the United States perspective, Tim beating an Errol Spence maybe creates his own lane permanently. Otherwise, in the United States, he's always Kostya's kid.
Yeah, got you. And last question, bro. Obviously, Fundora Thurman on the weekend. What's your reaction to that? And do you think Tim is the only one to sort of give Fundora problems?
I was just going to say that. I was saying, I think the rematch Fundora with Tim was an adjusted Fundora. I don't think it was the first Fundora. The first Fundora, I think Tim was about to knock him out. I wasn't that impressed with that Fundora. But Fundora has gotten better. He's made some improvements. He has this little half steps he makes now. He adjusts his distance, which once a guy 6'5", 6'6", knows how to adjust his distance, it creates a lot more problems. I don't understand why Fundora was never understanding how to adjust his distance before. I think in the first fight, Fundora was on his way to getting beat. In the second fight, you could see the clear adjustments. I think you started seeing them probably in the Cordell Booker fight. And now in the Thurman fight, I mean, Thurman, I never felt like Thurman's style was going to be a problem for Fundora, with the exception of maybe one big punch, because he's an in-and-out fighter, and an in-and-out fighter against a guy 6'5", 6'6" is going to have a problem. You're going to have to work your way in through head movement and that kind of style in order to, give a problem to a guy like Fundora. Being in and out, it's too much distance to travel because the guy's 6'5", 6'6", and Thurman was always a bouncy guy. He jumps, he leaps in explosively, jumps out, jumps in. 37, he's going to be less explosive, and he's never shown that he was the head movement type. So when I saw the fight, I wasn't shocked, but then of course I did. My head did go back to Tim, knowing that I was coming here for this fight, and I thought to myself, you know what, Tim doesn't look so bad anymore. Like people maybe could cut Tim some slack a little bit, because even in the rematch Fundora, even in the adjusted Fundora, Tim, when he made his last stand before the fight got stopped, he was landing some good punches. He was throwing some good punches, throwing hard. He landing good punches, better than anything Thurman ever did in the fight. That's for sure.
Yeah, cool.